Court in and for Pinellas County on session with the Honorable Anthony Rondelino, Chief Circuit Court Judge presiding.
Thank you, Sheriff. Everybody please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You can be seated. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you all for coming to our Pinellas County 16th Annual Adoption Day, which is part of our national observance of Adoption Day. Actually, the National Adoption Day itself is November 23rd, and throughout our land on that Saturday before Thanksgiving, it's an official recognition and celebration of adoptions. Before we start, I'd like to read to you a list, introductions of some dignitaries, judges, important people who have come to this important ceremonial adoption day. We have two of our judges who are going to be participating in the actual adoption proceedings. We have Judge Kim Todd, I think is here, and Judge Miriam Irizarry. Both of them are going to be assisting in the legal proceedings today, and we thank them. We also have Brian Bostic, who's the Executive Director of Eckerd Connects Community Alternatives, both for Pinellas and Pasco County. Last Friday, we had an adoption day up in Newport Richey for Pasco County. He attended at that time. We also have from Eckerd Connects Sonia Graham, Senior Director of Growth and Transformation. Patsy Sills, Program Director of the Hart Gallery of Pinellas and Pasco, which is a program of Gulf Coast Jewish Family Community Services. Terry Belia, Chief Operating Officer of Gulf Coast. Amy Foster, Executive Director of the Guardian Ad Litem Foundation of Tampa Bay and also a member of our St. Pete City Council. Gang Inskeep, who's our trial court administrator here for the entire circuit. From our school board, we have Eileen Long. We have Jessica Andringa, who is a district aide for our state representative, Chris Sprowls. Sam Jenkins, who's the district executive secretary for State Representative Wingay Newton. We have Mary Reba, who's a district legislative assistant for State Senator Ed Hooper. Celeste Fernandez, a community development administrator for DCF. Lisa Mayrose from Lutheran Services. Mary Ellen Olson, Director of the Guardian Ad Litem Program for our circuit. Captain David DeSano of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Child Protection Investigative Division. Mike Carroll, former Secretary of DCF. And Karen Hill from the State Attorney's Office, who is a Division Director. And there are certainly many others of importance and significance who didn't want their names listed perhaps, but let's give a round of applause to them all. Of course, we have the inimitable Al Rochelle, who I'll be turning the program over to later, but before I do that, I do have a few general remarks on behalf of the court system regarding today. And what a great day it is for the court, for the adopting parents, and most of all, for the children who are being adopted. This year we have a pretty significant number of children who are going to be involved in the ceremonies today who are receiving their forever families. There are 26 children who are being adopted into 20 families. So typically as judges here in this courthouse, which there's primarily criminal proceedings going on in this courthouse, it's usually not a happy day for people coming out here to the court. And honestly, generally, being a judge, you don't have folks who are happy to come to court, and most of the time the people leaving court are not happy. But today it's entirely different. I think everybody here is happy now and maybe going to be even happier when you're leaving. So it's wonderful, and certainly for the children who are now going to be part of a new family, they ought to be pretty happy about that. Some of these children have had a very, very difficult journey up to this point, but hopefully from now on, although there will be challenges, their lives will be changed forever. Who knows what will become of these children with the opportunities that they're now going to be presented. They might grow up to be a teacher, astronaut, doctor, maybe a judge, sit up here someday and commence in these kinds of proceedings. It doesn't really matter what ultimate occupation or endeavor they engage in, however. It's not as important as what's going on today, the fact that they're becoming part of a forever family. So, thank you so much to the adopting parents and the foster parents. You're truly special people. It, as you know, is an immense responsibility to raise a child, and the importance of people like you who step forward cannot be underestimated. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to be rich to adopt. You just need to be loving and committed to having a forever family. And we as a society in this country are indebted to those of you who take on these responsibilities. I thank you, and everyone here thanks you. We know that the sacrifices made by adopting parents and foster parents are many, but the rewards for that service to you and obviously to the children and our society are great. However, we need many, many more people willing to bring children into their lives. At this point, we need to thank Eckerd Connects Community Alternatives for being the lead agency responsible for the safety and well-being of children in the foster care system. And I have a statistic for you. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of statistics from up here, but under Eckerd's guidance, they have shepherded 134 adoptions since July 1 of this year. And of the 134, 26 are finding their forever families today. So thank you, Eckerd Connects. So just briefly, there are many others to thank, but I'll name several agencies that have specifically dealt with the adoptions. Guardian Ad Litem Foundation of Tampa Bay, Gulf Coast Heart Gallery of Pinellas and Pasco, Lutheran Services of Florida, the adoption-related services of Pinellas. I need to thank all of the attorneys who are involved in not only these adoptions, but the many others. Thanks also to the case managers who are often working under very difficult circumstances. I must say that, however, even though we have these successful adoptions that I've spoken of, 134 and the 26 children a day, we have those successes to be happy about, but there's much work to be done in this area. At any given time, there are more than 800 children waiting to be adopted in Florida, and in our nation there's over 120,000 children waiting to be adopted. Today, however, is an occasion for joy, so congratulations to all of you adopting parents and adopted children. This is like a new birthday for all of you, and thanks for your willingness to care and nurture, and may God bless you all. So at this time, I'm going to turn the program over to Al Rochelle. Thank you for being here again, Al. Appreciate it.
Boy, do you look good. I'm talking about the kids, okay? So we're going to start with the one rule to begin with right now, as you know, as parents or grandparents, is that the kids make noise, so what? Remember when you had the first child, the kid made a noise, it was like, shh, don't let anybody know you're in the building. And by the time you get to 2, 3, or 4, it's like, yeah, have a party. So as long as the kids don't discover that it echoes in here, we're probably all right. But if they figure that out, we are doomed. Anyway, Judge, thank you so much for your time. Always enjoy being here. Let's give a round of applause to Xander McCauley for the music he provided for us this morning. And I'm betting that every judge would love to have live music before they begin their days. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Of course, there'd be a fight about what music to play. Anyway, I'd like to welcome you all again to this Adoption Day celebration. It is very, very wonderful. For my family, this day is always very, very special. I brought with me today my wife, Jennifer, right here, and my daughter, Caitlin. And 5 years ago, and the last time I appeared before a year, we had just adopted, or my daughter had, a little girl who's now 6, right? Just turned 6, and she's in school, Grandpa, because she wants to learn. And then we were blessed, she was blessed about 3 or 4 months ago with another baby, and he's with us as well. And then we also have a third baby that is in the adoption process. And you know, for parents, for many of you, you know, you have waited for years for this. And if I were God, this must be a little bit frustrating because you're here and they're praying, when? God's going, don't worry, I got it, it's coming. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. But when you're in the process, it is very difficult. But today, all of these children and your prayers have been answered. Not only your prayers, but your family's prayers, and for older kids too, because their prayers have been answered as well, as we get ready to celebrate them becoming a forever family. So here's what you should do. Take a deep breath, take it in, absorb all of this wonderfulness, and remember it forever. Because that will get you through the tough times when they turn 16 and go, when can I drive the car? Right, never. When can I date? When you're 39. Anyway, this is a wonderful day, and take it in and absorb it because it goes by so quickly. Take a lot of pictures because you'll find out that tomorrow you'll turn the page and they're getting married. I mean, that's how fast time really, really flies. So here's something else that we discovered, that once you adopt, I mean, when I was growing up, I mean, people didn't talk about adoptions. Of course, I grew up in a little small town, 700 people, but today, once you adopt, it's like, everybody's adopted. I mean, everywhere. In our neighborhood, for example, I worked with another guy, the president of our homeowners association, and I had known him for 20 years. And when he heard that my daughter and her husband were adopting, he goes, oh yeah, my 3 kids are adopted, and they've adopted 3 kids of their own. So it's just a wonderful, natural thing like breathing. And it's one thing that makes us as a society better and better and better when we open up our hearts and experience all of the wonderful things that life has to offer. The ups, the downs, everything in the middle. That's what makes life so rich. So enjoy the joy today, absorb it, and keep it in your hearts forever. Right now, I'd like to introduce Brian Bostic, the Executive Director of Eckerd Connects Community Alternatives, Pasco and Pinellas County, to share a few words with us. Brian?
Good morning, everyone. It's a blessing to be here today. I'd like to say congratulations to the 26 children that are being adopted here today. We're beyond grateful for the 15 families who have graciously opened their hearts and their homes to these children. I also want to say thank you to all our community partners, our guardian ad litems, and the case management organization. But I do want to take a moment to ask that all case managers stand so we can recognize them for all the hard work that they do every day. I'd also like to thank all of the agency staff and adoption planning committee members. We truly could not do this without you. This is an event that's held every year, and you guys do a great job with it. Another important partner is the Heart Gallery. They do a lot of great work and have a lot of videos and photos of our children, so you know who are available for adoption. So definitely want to recognize the Heart Gallery. In 2018, there were 402 children adopted from foster care in Pinellas and Pasco County. Of those 402 children, 249 were adopted from Pinellas County. There are still 23 children in Pinellas County right now who do not have identified adoptive placement. We would love to have a family for these children. So if you're interested, please go to Heart Gallery and view these children. There's a great need for foster parents and adoptive parents in Pinellas County, and we hope you will consider becoming a foster adoptive parent to be a hero to these children in need. Numerous children age out of foster care every year without being adopted. but these families here today have ensured that from this day forward, the children here today will have forever families. So again, I say thank you to the adoptive families for stepping up and giving all these children loving homes, and thank you for being here to celebrate this occasion with us today. So thank you very much, everyone.
You know, it's something that Brian mentioned is that we're very, very fortunate that we have so many organizations that are involved in trying to get these kids adopted. Of course, how many of you are familiar with the Heart Gallery? Just to make sure that we know what that is. Yeah, that's a wonderful, wonderful organization. They take pictures of these kids, make them look like rock stars, because all kids really are, and they deserve to have the attention of those photographers. And it's just a wonderful organization that I've been working with. And I'm so proud of the Heart Gallery of Pinellas and Pasco because of all of the great things that they do. And right now, our next speaker is Patsy Stills, the program director of the Heart Gallery of Pinellas and Pasco County. Patsy?
Good morning. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the introduction, Al. I want to thank the Pinellas Court staff and the community members who made today possible in this celebration, so let's give them a hand. And it's my honor to speak to you briefly today. I just wanted to give you a little bit of history of the Heart Gallery of Pinellas and Pasco. We recently merged with Gulf Coast Jewish Family and Community Services, but we're the same Heart Gallery that you've known since 2006 that started right here locally with a few volunteers and has grown over the years to help 369 now children get adopted from the children that get referred to us from case management. We have our volunteer photographers take their photos. We put them at as many places as possible to get our children adopted and to find those connections. So we're always recruiting, connecting, and supporting the families once they do get adopted. So with merging with Gulf Coast in June, it's really opened up opportunities for me as a program director to be able to be out in the community more and to spread the word, get more galleries up and running. And also, I just recently hired my part-time staff. I call her my .5 right there. I'd like Catherine Pappas to stand up, please, and be recognized. Catherine just joined us recently, and she herself is an adopted young lady, and she has a 2-year-old boy who's just as cute as can be, and we try to get him involved in what we're doing at any given time that we can. But Catherine really shares the enthusiasm that I do for adoption and for supporting families and for getting the right children to the right homes and matching the strengths of the families with the needs of the children. So we're here for you. We will continue to operate and do great work in the community. And if there's anything I can do to help connect you to your forever family, please let me know. One thing I wanted to do today, just 3 thank yous real quick, and I won't take much time for you here, but I wanted to thank 3 important components of making this day possible. And the first is the case management. Brian learned from me last week that you should have the case manager stand up and get a thank you. So good job, Brian. Notice you took some notes there. Proud of you. Everyone can learn, right? As we grow, we all learn. But the case management, I'm very serious about my respect and love for case management and for the jobs that they do. Their job descriptions are this long. They have to be all things to all people, and they don't get a lot of love and respect as much as I think that they deserve. So I do want to recognize all the case managers. Everyone from the Eckerd Connects Case Management that works in adoptions, and also the Lutheran Services Florida case managers that work in adoptions. We couldn't do it without you, and we're so proud of you. So I want you to stand again. This time, put your fists up and go, yeah! Let's give them a big hand. Woohoo! Yeah, there you go, Matthew. Yeah. Woohoo! They're doing a great job. And then celebrating the families, I do want to take a moment just to celebrate the families who adopt. You are beyond wonderful, and every other adjective that we can come up with for you. When it comes to the idea of adopting a local child, many will give you praise, and many will share with you why they couldn't do it, right? How many of you got that? Give me a little amen or show of hands. How many people are like, oh, I could never do what you do, right? You get that all the time. But you've given selflessly and opened your hearts and homes and your finances and everything else about your lives to these children in need. And we really thank you for that, because you chose the path less traveled. And you put your faith in children and in this system and in all the other people that it takes to raise a child and to meet their needs. And you've done that in a great big world where there's lots of rules and regulations, so many praise to you. So if you are an adopted parent or will be today, please stand or wave and be recognized. Thank you. We couldn't do it without you. And lastly, and probably the most importantly, it's all about the children, right? It's all about the children. We want to recognize if you are an adult or a child who was or will be adopted, thank you. Thank you so much. Today we are celebrating our 26 children being adopted into 20 families, forever legally part of your family and in your future and beyond. And adoption is a part of every society. And as Al mentioned, you can go back any generations and find adoption in all families. In fact, my family would have been Presley's had we not turned into Stills. But I'm glad we didn't know that when I had children. Otherwise, my son would have been Wesley Presley, and that would have been really hard. But sometimes adopted people face biases, and sometimes people just don't understand that adoption equals family, right? And in 2016, one of the best American athletes in history, a young gymnast, had to deal with an interviewer who refused to acknowledge her adoptive parents as her parents. And the interviewer didn't let it go, even after he was corrected. And that led to her having to answer more questions from reporters wanting to know if she had a comment about it, to which she replied, "I personally don't have a comment about it. My parents are my parents, and that's it." Amen, right? Yeah, that's it. My parents are my parents, and that's it. That's all she wanted to say. And that young lady was Simone Biles, who is still making history today in gymnastics. So you go, Simone. Great. And other famous adoptees, Jamie Foxx, singer Faith Hill, John Lennon from the Beatles. And let's not forget Tampa Bay's very own Chris Archer, who was playing with the Rays and helped the Heart Gallery celebrate the 300th adoption just a few years ago. And we're just making strides every day to help the hardest to get adopted every day. So thank you to the Rays also. So let's recognize the adopted here today. So if you're adopted or going to be today, please stand or wave so we can give you a huge round of applause and a very special thank you. We couldn't do it without you. Yay! Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and I'm so glad you invited me to be here today. Bless.
Wow, what a great day. Kids, thank you so much. Patsy always has lots of energy and really is a wonderful part of the program, and I'm very pleased to be a part of it as well. So let's get out there and adopt more children, shall we? Now, each year on Adoption Day, we have a special speaker who shares their own personal adoption experience, and this year, it's Kelly Zarro. While she was working as a case manager in drug court in Jacksonville, Florida, Kelly was struck by the difference between the heart-wrenching stories coming out of dependency court and her own idyllic life. After she, her husband Aaron, a national business development manager, and their 2 children moved back to Pinellas County, she and Aaron decided that they would become foster parents. One of their first placements, it turned out, suffered from neonatal abstinence syndrome, the result of entering this world drug addicted. So the Zarros took the extra step of becoming medical foster parents, and they adopted the young girl Emily, who is now 4. Now, in addition to the 3 children, the Zarros are currently medical foster parents for a 2-year-old and an 11-month-old girl. Kelly is also the Pinellas County chapter advocate for Foster Florida, whose mission is to strengthen the bonds among foster families and to provide help for them. Kelly, we can't wait to hear your story and where you get all the energy to do all of that. Kelly Zarro, come on up.
Good morning. As an adoptive mother myself, it is such an honor to speak to you today. I'm excited to be here on such a joyous occasion, not only to celebrate the beauty of adoption as a whole, but to raise awareness about the beauty that lies in foster care, where adoption is never the goal, but often the outcome, as it was in our case. It was a long time ago, but I remember the moment that led me to foster care as if it was happening in real time, right here and right now. I was a young social worker in the waiting room of a rehab with 2 sleeping babies on my lap. Their mother, my client, had just finished visiting with her children and had to go to group therapy, but transport was late to pick up the kids. So I offered to wait with them so she wouldn't miss group. Off she went, and there I sat. It was there during an ordinary workday the seed of foster care was planted. Both of the kids were quick to fall asleep on my lap, their sweaty little heads nestled peacefully into my chest, their hair tickling my chin, when I had the brief thought, "Aw, isn't this sweet?" Immediately followed by the realization that it wasn't as sweet as it appeared. It was actually kind of disturbing. I had children of my own at home, and I knew that at this stage of development, these children should have been at the height of separation anxiety, hesitant to relax on a stranger they just met. They should have cried when their mother left, and this should have felt unnatural to them. They certainly should not have been experiencing so much that these innate responses in their little lives and typical attachments were already significantly altered at such a young age. My thoughts continued to race with all the should-haves they deserved clashing with what they did have. I continued to think things like they should be at a park playing, not in a rehab. Their parents, their grandparents, and family should be their safety, their security, their rides places. Not a stranger late because the system is perpetually overwhelmed and can't keep up. These poor, precious babies deserve the exact same things my children deserved, and I was able to offer them. Only I couldn't give that to someone else's kids, or could I? That thought was abruptly stopped when their ride pulled up and I helped load these precious children into the back seat of someone's car they had never met. They barely winced, the car drove off, and I went on about my day, unable to shake the unsettling feeling of it all. My reaction seems obvious and inconsequential, I know. We all know that this shouldn't be any child's life. They should have play dates, not court dates, their innocent past altered by them, for them by another, one whose path was probably strikingly similar, a cycle that we all know needs to be broken. Yet there that day, the injustice of it all was incredibly impactful, because it was no longer just a disparity I knew in my mind, but one literally placed in my lap, experienced in my arms, and embedded in my heart. I'd love to tell you that I went right home, spoke to my husband, and Googled how to become a foster parent, and the rest is history. But truthfully, that wasn't the case at all. Instead, I briefly shared my conviction I felt that day, and then, like so many others, the fears stopped us from taking action, and I squelched down that feeling, vowing to do something about it one day when the timing was better. Occasionally, from time to time, my heart would be stirred again. I'd bring it up, we'd discuss it, but the busy and full life that we were leading with our own children helped us justify not taking that leap into foster care. Then one day, about 5 years ago, we found ourselves back home in Pinellas County, finally on the same page about this topic, our support system in place, and the timing just felt right. That's where our adoption story begins. Only our adoption story begins as everything but that, an adoption story. We already had 2 children who were the center of our universe, and in every way felt our family was complete. They were 6 and 8 when we started the process to get licensed, and like many parents I've spoken to, we were concerned about how this would affect them. Concerned they may feel slighted, concerned they'd get too attached and have a hard time grieving the children in and out of our home. Concerned we'd be introducing some tough topics into their little hearts and minds, so concerned that we almost didn't do this, that we almost missed this. And I can't tell you how that breaks my heart to think of now. Sure, they're my babies and my utmost responsibility, but they're also just little people that I'm trying to prepare for a big world, a world that extends far beyond them and that they are not the center of. Sure, I want their childhood to be mostly happy-go-lucky, but I would be doing them a disservice if I let them believe that in life, that was always going to be the case, that everyone got the same childhood and that there was no suffering. Fostering hasn't just introduced one of the sad facts of life that the real world has hurting, neglected, abused, and abandoned children in it, but it has also introduced them to the compassion, sacrifice, and selflessness that comes alongside inviting those children into our home. It's given them a chance to feel like they can make a real difference, that they can change the world for another. It's truly amazing to watch them feel empowered to affect change for others. To not just hear the sad news and move on thinking someone else will do something about it, but to jump in where and when someone needs them. I'm so proud of how they are living this out daily. I hope that they carry the lesson with them wherever their life's passion becomes. So there we were, a family, ready to begin our journey to become a foster family. We did our best to prepare ourselves and the kids, then set out to simply help families who needed a safe place for their children to be while they worked to better themselves as parents. We were passionate and eager to get our first placement and begin working with their family. The need in our area is tremendous. We were told we would have a child in our home right away. Yet in the month that followed being officially licensed, before we would receive our first placement, we had 4 calls for other children, all of whom ended up falling through after we had agreed and then prepared our home practically and emotionally for them. Each time we were so disheartened. I began questioning if our family could handle the ups and downs of foster care, if we could hardly handle the ups and downs of our very first placement. My licensing specialist's words, "The only constant in foster care is change," was not helpful, but played on a loop in my head. I tried telling myself it was God preparing my heart and our family for the roller coaster that we were about to get on, and that even if I felt discouraged and full of doubt, that this was part of his plan. But truly, I was ready to give up before we even began. I think even though each adoption story is unique in its own right, that is probably the common thread among them all. Nothing goes quite as anticipated. With each obstacle, your heart's desire is challenged and ultimately intensified. In hindsight, the rough stuff that we endured makes perfect sense. What began as our family preparing for a child was God preparing us for this child. I wish I had that comfort then, but it turns out the absence of it ended up being a gift as well. I see now that those other placements, our plans, had to fall through for our home to be available for the daughter that we now know was meant to be ours. I'll never forget that call that catapulted all 4 pounds of her into our life and changed things forever. The voice on the other end led with, "There's a 13-day-old baby girl in the hospital that needs a family. Are you interested?" That's not a call you get every day. I responded by yelling through their phone, "You mean she's almost 2 weeks old and hasn't had family there holding her?" I didn't wait for an answer. I followed up my rhetorical question with a command. "You get me on that visitation list. Even if she doesn't come home with us, I am going to the hospital to hold that baby." Coming off those failed placements, the thought of that first meeting felt equal parts risky and rewarding. I was afraid that this too might not go as planned. I waited on pins and needles to get the approval to go to the hospital and hold her. My mind anxiously raced. Would she be the one to finally become part of our family for a while? How long would she stay with us? What was her story? A few hours later, a nurse placed her in my arms, and just like when my bio children were placed in my arms, I was immediately aware of all she deserved, and the desire to give it to her rose up in me as if it would have if she were truly mine. I was flooded with dreams for this baby. Her future stretched out before me, and yet I couldn't quite picture it because in my mind, I was guaranteed not to be part of it. And still I knew she needed me now. So there we were, a mother and a daughter experiencing love at first sight with no guarantees. 9 days later, I was able to leave the hospital with her. It's truly a strange feeling to leave the hospital with someone else's child. I remember asking the nurse to triple check the paperwork because I really did not want to go home and find myself on the news. The only thing missing from that moment that I left that hospital, though, versus when I did with my biological children, was the illusion of control that I had with them. That act of surrendering to the unknown felt incredibly scary at first, and yet it went on to be the most freeing way of parenting I've ever known. What I thought was a hindrance at first was actually a huge blessing, and the standard of attachment I'd wish I'd had with every relationship I'd ever known. I now see that broken down in its simplest form, foster care is just representative of the human experience to vulnerably love someone without control or expectation, which should really be the goal of all of our relationships, if you think about it. Stripped down, isn't that how most of your greatest relationships started? How your best friends, children, or spouse came into your life? You meet, they have their past, you have yours, both flawed, hard to love human beings. You learn to work together along with all the outside forces in your life that affect your relationship, working desperately not to give up on one another, building a relationship based on each person loving the other to the best of their ability for as little or as long as you have together, both never guaranteed tomorrow. This is precisely foster care. Love, a natural love in a complex system. Falling in love with a child more each day without the promise of their tomorrow gave us all in this family the opportunity to experience the purest form of love and joy any of us have ever known. As you fall in love with them, it's as if there's the sound of a faint clock ticking away in the distance, constantly reminding you of your fleeting time together. You stay present, savoring each moment as if it may be your last. People say that these children are lucky to have us, but truthfully, in these experiences that we've had, where this type of love is seen, felt, and lived out without any rights to one another, we are the lucky ones. Experiencing a child's life through this lens is such a treasure. Yet each moment holds a bittersweet feeling. You find yourself trying to hang on to it with twice the sentiment. Once experiencing it for yourself, knowing what you could have missed, and a second time for their biological parents who are missing it. It can be emotionally exhausting, as if you are celebrating and mourning each moment at the same time. For us, peace came in the form of getting to know her family and being open to loving them as well. Even though Emily's mother was immediately extradited to another state right after her birth, and they have not seen each other since, the love that she has for her daughter is undeniable, and the goal remained reunification for the bulk of the first few years of her life. For years, we worked hard to remain open to all of the options for her and still navigate relationships with everyone related to her, while treating her like our forever child, because that's what all children deserve, their parents to be all in, regardless of circumstance. Over time, through that process, Emily's mother and I became quite close. We wrote letters and we spoke on the phone for hours at a time. I'm so thankful for that time because we truly formed a love I can never do justice trying to explain. Mother to mother, we simply tried to love our daughter to the best of our ability and gained a surprising love for one another in the process. A few months before Emily's third birthday, the day came when her mother asked me if we would adopt her. Out went the plans of not adopting. We were smitten, and of course we said yes. I cannot imagine how hard it was for her to ask us that question, to face that reality. And yet there she was, braving that choice for the sake of her child. And I felt such peace knowing that it was her wish that her daughter remain with us. We chose her new middle name together, Faith, as we both believed that God had been writing this story and us together in it all along. On August 30th, 2018, we made our sweet girl official, and I think I breathed deeply for the first time in a few years. You wanna come here? Come here. Look out there. No? Okay. I've told you this story in past tense, as it is now our history. But up until her adoption a little over a year ago, and for all of the children living in the unknown, has very much so been our present, our complicated reality, the one we never chose, they never chose, and we had the burden of carrying out the best way we knew possible. To be fully strangers and fully family, it's practically all we've ever known. I'll be the first to admit that it's an odd tension to live in, yet it's been our greatest gift. I pray that more people will see the blessing of saying yes rather than the false security of saying no. It's my deepest wish today and every day that others' hearts will be stirred and that they will open their hearts and their homes for the almost 24,000 Emilys right here in care in our state of Florida. Thank you.
Oh yeah, start crying. I knew that would happen. God bless you for all your work for the kids. Another thing we do, besides anchors crying on TV, is recognizing some folks that we believe have made a special contribution to the world of adoption. And of course, you are all of those as well. But this award is called the Irene Sullivan Adoption Advocacy Award. Here to explain that award is Amy Foster, the Executive Director of the Guardian Ad Litem Foundation of Tampa Bay, which, by the way, does a fabulous job, Amy. Another one of those cases where not enough people know what you do, and thank you for what your group does.
Well, good morning. I know firsthand, I'm an adoptive parent myself, and even though it was 4 years ago, it feels like it was yesterday. So I know you're all sitting there anxiously anticipating the moment you're going to walk into a courtroom and form your forever family. So you're almost there. I have the pleasure today to recognize someone who's made a difference in our circuit for all of the children who need to be fostered or adopted. Judge Sullivan could not be with us today, but many of you probably know that while she resided on the bench, she sat over many adoptions and forming families. And so we honor her each year with this award. She continues to educate young lawyers and others to advocate for children in our community, and is a part of choosing the recipient each year. So this year I have the pleasure of recognizing Melissa Elwin. Jean McNary, who is with the Guardian Ad Litem program, nominated Melissa, and here's a little bit about her, and then we're going to hear from her. Melissa is the mother of 3 biological children, 2 who still live in her home. She is also one of many foster parents who advocate for children so that they can have a forever home. She belongs to a foster parent group in Wesley Chapel and another one in Newport Richey. She not only does the work with her own family and these groups, but she also helps train foster parents and even persuaded her own mother to become a foster parent. So it's a real family affair. Many foster parents promote adopting children who are in the dependency system, but Melissa, along with her own family, not only advocates to help children find a forever home, her own home is a forever home for 7 children. 3 from one sibling group, 3 from another sibling group who have a baby sister, now 5 months old, who Melissa hopes she can adopt too. I think she's with us today and maybe is a couple months older now. There are also 2 other foster children in the home, one who is a teenager and 14, and the other child is 10. With 11, I don't even know how you get places with 11 children. Melissa's household runs like a well-oiled machine. She's known in her community, in her church, and everywhere she goes in public, people ask her about her whole crew and want to understand how her family was formed. She's always the first to promote adoption and foster care. So Melissa, will you come say a few words for us, please?
I wasn't prepared to speak, but I'm honored to receive this award, and this will be number 7 we're working on here, hopefully. We're very blessed to have all the children that has come in and out of our home and children that we have adopted. I'm also very blessed to have me and my husband to have a wonderful team that is in our home, from case managers to guardian ad litems. I have probably one of the best, in my opinion, guardian ad litem. She's phenomenal. She's been in my home for a very long time now, and
Can't get away from her.
she can't get away from me. Every time I have a new one, I'm like, Jean, you're in on this one. You don't have a choice. So she's literally been with me since day one. So she's phenomenal. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Congratulations.
She's going to take over now. I'm preparing her to be in the brutal world of television. There we go. Thank you and congratulations. Well deserved. Sir, you're the one that's got that school bus out front? Is that the deal? Oh my gosh. Well, as we start wrapping up our program, we'd like to take just a moment to have Xander McCauley. He's going to play us a song, and then after that, the judge will speak, and we'll get on with the process that goes on to it. And by the way, kids, you are doing so well. Just keep it up for about another 10 minutes, okay?
Thank you for that beautiful music. Before we conclude our ceremonies in here and you all move to the courtroom for the adoptive procedures, I'd like to introduce just two folks who I think came in after we started. Judge Josh Reba is over here sitting in the jury box. How'd you like to have a judge in your jury box? That's good. And then this is particularly important, last but not least, our Pinellas County Clerk of Court, Ken Burke. And once again, for those of you who are going to be getting some very important papers today, Mr. Burke is in charge of keeping those papers for the rest of eternity. So finally, we will have staff with volunteers with colored signs who are going to be telling you exactly where to go. If you look over here near the exit, you'll see that there's some colored signs over there. So that should be fairly easy to follow. And finally, thank you very much to Al Rochelle, who keeps coming back for these things. It's a wonderful job that he does. And thank you again, Al. The court will now be in recess, but you all can feel free to take photographs if you wish. Court's in recess.
Walk away.